I'm the type of HOI4 player that doesn't really care all that much about the lore or the storyline of any particular campaign. What I care about are challenges, single player challenges, difficult or interesting campaigns that actually require some thought and skill in order to win. And to find campaigns like that, I've found that you often have to leave the base game. Vanilla HOI4, after a few thousand hours, just stops being difficult. No matter what you do, you get to a point where you just roll over the bot every single time without any trouble. It gets old, it gets boring, and when that happens, if you want to keep playing this game, you need to branch out into the various HOI4 mods to keep things interesting. That's what this campaign is. We're going to be playing the infamous pony mod this time, and we're going to crank up all the difficulty settings to try and make it as difficult for us as humanly possible. Here's a quick summary of what we're going to do in this campaign. This country here is Equestria. They're the friendship ponies, the main characters. Now in this mod, they don't use the same calendar as they do in the base game. The game doesn't start in 1936 like it does in vanilla. Instead, the game starts in the year 1007. In the year 1011, 4 years later, these guys, the Changelings, invade Equestria. The Changelings are basically the Germany of this mod, and they launch a Barbarossa-style offensive to try and wipe out all the ponies. I have a campaign already on my channel where I play as Equestria and defend against that invasion at max difficulty. We're going to do that again, but with a twist. I'm attempting the exact same challenge again in this campaign, except I'm not playing as Equestria this time. Instead, I'm going to be playing as this tiny little country all the way over here, New Mareland. This country is a puppet of Equestria, and I'm going to try to use it to save Equestria from collapsing. We're a minor country, a puppet at that, and yet in addition, I'm also going to be cranking up all the difficulty settings to the absolute maximum. That means we're going to be playing on elite difficulty. We're going to be giving the Changelings all the buffs that I can, and to top it all off, I'll be playing without any DLCs. There will be no tank designer, no ship designer, no plane designer, no spies, no special projects except for the default ones. Nothing that exists in any DLC will be here in this campaign. This will make things significantly harder than a normal campaign. That's because the DLCs, when enabled, just give you, the player, more tools to min-max with. Having them is like playing the game with training wheels on. The bot can't use the DLC content as well as you can, so having them enabled is a strict advantage for the player unless you're playing something like Sheep's mod, where that bot has been scripted to use the designers correctly. But anyway, that's the setup. We're going to play as one of Equestria's puppets, and we're going to try to save the friendship ponies from total annihilation from their own incompetence as this tiny little backwater country half a world away. It's a very simple scenario, super straightforward, and yet this game turned into one of the weirdest campaigns I've ever played. This simple scenario turned into a crazy intercontinental struggle completely outside the scope of everything it was originally meant to be. But anyway, without further ado, let's just get started. I suppose I should start by talking about exactly what bonuses I'm giving to the Changelings. I maxed out their slider, which gave them a ton of bonuses. The most important one was an increase in their production efficiency cap, an extra 30%. That's huge, and it's going to translate into a ton of extra equipment in the field. They also got a 20% research speed bonus, an 80% fuel reduction bonus, more political power, less attrition, more army XP, and the list just goes on and on. The next bonus I gave them was what's called the production fix. Because the bot tends to change its production lines around in stupid ways during the game, the production fix increases their base production efficiency depending on what difficulty you have the game set at. Since we're playing on elite difficulty, the maximum, they will get the maximum benefit, a base production efficiency of 80%, which will give them way more equipment than normal. Then I turned off the division limiter. By default in this mod, the bot will restrict the total number of divisions it will produce over time. I disabled that, so the bot will produce as many divisions as it can. Then there was a toggle called Great War AI bonuses. With it, you can give either the Changelings or Equestria additional bonuses when the war between them starts. Naturally, I gave all those bonuses to the Changelings as well. I don't actually know what those bonuses are specifically, but the Changelings have them and Equestria doesn't. With all of these bonuses, the Changelings are going to be massively overpowered. they'll end up with an entire army of 30 or so solid medium tank divisions when the war starts. And they're going to aggressively battle plan with them into the wide open plains of Equestria. Equestria on its own has absolutely zero chance of surviving against that. And those tank divisions are what make this challenge so difficult. Okay, now on to our overall strategy here. New Mareland has almost no manpower in it, and it can't get any more manpower either until it's at war. Its conscription laws are blocked, and you need to complete a focus to unblock them. But the prerequisite for that focus is being at war, so we're only going to be able to field a couple of divisions, maybe 4 if we're lucky. I plan to use tanks for this run, light tanks specifically, and they're going to be designed to be used against Changeling infantry. I'm not even going to try to fight their medium tanks directly. With my past experience with this Changeling war as Equestria, I found that the front line tends to get extremely long and extremely thin, so I'm going to try to make it even thinner by focusing on destroying infantry divisions to make it harder for the Changelings to maintain that front line. Equestria outnumbers them, so a long front line favors the ponies. When enough Changeling infantry are destroyed, it will then be possible to encircle their tanks because there will be gaps in the line. So that's the overall plan. Since I don't have access to the tank designer, I'm going to be using light tanks and light SPGs for some extra soft attack. I won't go into too much detail on what I'm doing with the focus tree because it's largely irrelevant. We start with a bunch of debuffs, and I'm speedrunning the removal of those debuffs. And I'll be focusing on the economy, civs and mills. I'm not changing our government or doing anything crazy. We're going to be staying as Equestria's puppet for this entire game, though we are going to end up as a much more autonomous puppet. Technically a dominion. I'm building mills almost exclusively. Because we're playing on elite difficulty, our mills are so much weaker than they're supposed to be because our production efficiency cap has been reduced by 30%. That's one of the things that elite difficulty does, so we need a lot more mills than usual. This game is also being played before the recent doctrine rework, so we're using the old system of purchasing doctrine upgrades with straight army XP, so I'm building that up early. I'm doing some tech juggling as well to try and get the tanks researched quicker so I can start producing them as early as possible. So that covers most of the basics of the build I'm going for. We're going to try to get 4 to 6 tank divisions ready for the war, and we're going to try to use them to save Equestria from their own incompetence. Mills are so important for us right now that I don't even care that we're on civilian economy and that we have a big debuff to constructing them. I need mills, and the earlier I get them, the better. The most valuable mills you can get are the ones you get early, as they'll be producing equipment for a much longer period of time. I decided to go dispersed industry in this game, which I believe was a mistake in hindsight. I chose it because I knew I was going to be switching around production lines a lot, especially here at the beginning of the game. But it's still 4 years before the war starts. The extra factory output from concentrated would have outproduced the extra retention I had from dispersed when I was switching production lines around in the long run. There is this decision called Trade with Skyfall that costs 100 political power. It's really good. It gives you an extra 5% production efficiency cap and less consumer goods, so it's something I definitely want to get at some point. Most of the other decisions, though, are kinda garbage. There are 2 decisions that give an extra military factory, so I'll be taking those at some point, and there's a decision way at the bottom called Military Exercises, which gives free army XP while you're at peace. It's also quite good, but getting my advisors are more important right now. I'm not going to be building a navy at all. I have so little manpower that I can't afford to blow it on ships. I need every man I can get in the field. Every horse, rather. I really need more horsepower. I'm making some 2-widths right now so that I can get a bunch of divisions in the field so I can send some volunteers later on. The number of volunteers you can send depends on division count, so I need to fudge the numbers to make my army look bigger than it is so I can send more. I really need to start grinding a tank general. I already know exactly which countries I'll be sending volunteers to, so I'm doing a test right here to try and see exactly how many 2-width divisions I'm going to need to be able to send exactly 2 tank divisions there later. I don't want too many or too few, so I'm trying to find the exact cutoff. My whole economy is going to be dedicated to the production of these tanks. I should be able to sort out all the other equipment I need later on. I should also point out, for those who aren't familiar with this mod, that there's actually a race system in it. There are all kinds of different creatures in this mod. There's ponies, dragons, griffins, yaks, polar bears, penguins, the list goes on. And many of these different species have their own race-specific technologies. That's what that final tab on the research screen is. Since I'm a pony country, I have the pony technology tree available to me. And some of those techs are actually quite good and buff our industry. And there isn't an ahead of time penalty on them. I can get more factory output and construction speed from there. There's also a system for how developed your country is, but that system is largely irrelevant for us in this game. Essentially, if you're playing a country with a lot of poverty and illiteracy, you get industry and research debuffs, and there's no easy way to remove them without conquering territory and getting more factories. Not unless you have something specific in your focus tree anyway. But because we're playing a pony country that's a subject of Equestria, the main characters, our societal development is maxed out in every category, and so we don't have to worry about it. We do start with 2 major debuffs though. There's a Great Depression going on, killing our economy, and there's also a pretty big debuff that comes from being a puppet. I need to get to the bottom of this section of the focus tree to clear those debuffs, and I'm trying to rush that first. Our research speed, consumer goods, and political power gain are all really bad right now because of those debuffs. My tank divisions are going to be split roughly 50-50 between tanks and SPGs. So I tried to do a bit of a trick here where I had 2 lines producing the same tank and then switched the bottom line out with an SPG once I had it researched. Since the tank and the SPG use the same chassis, I didn't lose much production efficiency when I made the change. Changelings are making their first big move right now. Before attacking Equestria, they take down a neighboring country called Olenia first. That's the deer country. They're about to start that war now. Because I got a head start on producing the regular tank, I'm adding factories to the SPG line first to hopefully balance their numbers out over time. I want equal numbers of tanks and SPGs. I also really don't want to trade for resources. I need my civs to produce more mills right now, so I'm sometimes just tanking the debuff to factory output due to lack of resources if it's small enough. Here it's only about 3%, and that's not significant enough to drop a civilian factory. This is also why I'm researching excavation techs to get more steel. That might allow me to save a civilian factory or 2 by making it so that I don't need to trade as much. I'm not sure this is really the right choice though in the long run. If I had gone free trade instead and traded with Equestria for all my resources, they'd probably trade back, since my country has a near monopoly on a resource that everyone wants: aluminum. A lot of other countries want that from me, and we have a lot of it, and they trade for it, giving me those civs back. And then I'd benefit from the extra factory output and research speed buffs from free trade. I think if I were to replay this campaign, I'd do that instead as well. Free trade and concentrated industry. To be honest, I'm not sure I'd use tanks next time either. New Mareland has a lot of bonuses to special forces. That's what they're good at. The pony race also has their own special forces type. So when you're playing a pony country, there's Marines, Mountaineers, Paratroopers, and then there's a new type available called Pegasi. And the big advantage of Pegasi is that they actually have air attack. They can shoot down enemy planes. And they also have some extra bonuses that you can research in the pony technology tree that make them even stronger. They also move at 6 kilometers an hour instead of 4, so they're faster. On elite difficulty, political power is just so hard to come by. The debuffs I'm trying to get rid of are also massively reducing the amount I get per day. I can't even get to partial mobilization yet. I really need to get rid of those debuffs. I was also kind of being a bit sloppy with some of my research here. I could have definitely done things a lot better in that regard. I should have juggled more often and prioritized some other things. But oh well, this was one of the first playthroughs I ever played as New Mareland, and I didn't have any spreadsheets or anything like that to determine what the most optimal strategy was. Finally, I get partial mobilization. I decided to pick up an air advisor. Even if you don't plan on having or using aircraft, if you have an ally that uses air, you still want to have your air doctrine selected, because if an ally has CAS over your units, the game uses your air doctrine when determining how strong the bonuses from that CAS will be. It doesn't use their doctrine. So this is the main reason I'm building air XP right now, to buff any CAS that Equestria might have over my units later. I might get a few planes out before the war, but I certainly won't have many. But Equestria should have a good number, and I would like to get some benefits from them. This tank, to be blunt, sucks, but it's very hard to make a good tank without the tank designer. so everyone's tanks are going to suck. I don't have any trucks, but that's by design. I can commandeer civilian trucks with this decision. It costs stability, but it grants 500 free trucks that should fill out the first 2 tank divisions I plan on sending out as volunteers. Yakistan here is where I plan on sending them first. There's a civil war going on right now between the Kingdom of Yakistan and the Yaki clan. The Yaki clan, if they win, can end up joining the Changelings, while the Kingdom of Yakistan usually remains neutral, though sometimes, rarely, they can end up joining Equestria. It really depends on what everyone else on the continent does. But the main reason to try and fight the Yaki clan is that the Changelings are going to be sending volunteers here. They always do. If I can destroy a few of their volunteer divisions, it'll make the invasion of Equestria a little bit weaker. There is a downside though. Because I'm sending volunteers to a landlocked country without a port, and since the Kingdom of Yakistan doesn't have any convoys, there's actually no reinforcement path between my capital and the volunteers I'll be sending. This means they won't receive reinforcements. Neither manpower nor equipment, which kinda sucks. My units will just get weaker and weaker after every battle. Equestrian volunteers would get reinforcements if they were sent there, since they're on the same continent, but New Mareland volunteers wouldn't. This is one of those weird supply oddities that doesn't get explained in tutorials that claim to explain the supply system of this game. Volunteers are supplied and reinforced with the host country's convoys and trains, not your own. It's bizarre, but if you've ever had volunteers sent somewhere that started acting strangely, losing supplies suddenly, or not getting reinforcements, that's why. The host is either being convoy raided, or they have run out of convoys or trains or something like that. Or there's no connection with your capital supply hub due to a lack of a port. Anyway, unlike in the base game, you can recall your volunteer divisions in this mod, which largely gets around this issue. So if the equipment levels in my volunteers get too low, I can pull them out, replenish them, then send them back in. As soon as my tanks get full equipment, I'll be sending them off. I'm not used to playing as a puppet nation. I really should have taken advantage of Lend-Lease a little bit more. Basically, as a puppet, if I have a deficit, I can request equipment from Equestria, and if my deficit is large enough, they'll usually cover it. If I were a bit smarter, I would have exploited that a bit more. I could have gotten all my trucks, artillery, guns, and anti-aircraft guns like that, instead of wasting mills on producing them. It's another change I'd make if I were to play this campaign again. You could make the argument that Equestria needs that equipment more than I do, but every single time I've ever seen them lose the war against the Changelings, they always have a ton of equipment left over at the end. And that's because the war never becomes a long drawn-out attritional slugfest that grinds down everyone's equipment stockpiles. If Equestria loses, it's always because the Changelings encircled and destroyed a bunch of their divisions and they couldn't get any more out soon enough, even though they had the equipment for it. So taking some of their equipment through Lend-Lease wouldn't make a difference either way. So that's the 4 big changes I'd make so far. Concentrated industry instead of dispersed, free trade, I'd plan my economy around receiving Lend-Lease from Equestria, and I probably wouldn't be using tanks. I'd probably make Pegasi divisions instead to take advantage of New Mareland's country-specific bonuses for them. To make good tanks, you really just need the tank designer. By the way, the Crystal Empire here to the south is also on my team. They're another equestrian puppet. Stalliongrad, on the other hand, isn't a puppet, but if Equestria starts losing the war against the Changelings, Stalliongrad will join our faction and help out. Not to help out Equestria, necessarily, they actually don't like each other very much and even have a border dispute that sometimes causes them to go to war with each other, but in an enemy of my enemy sort of way, like the USA and the Soviet Union in World War II. So in this mod, the devs were a little bit more creative with personality traits and the backstories behind the various generals than Paradox was with the generals in the base game. Some of these generals have some crazy personality traits that you've probably never seen before. The guy I end up picking has a unique trait that boosts reinforce rate by a flat 5%, which is crazy strong early game. I do make a bit of a mistake here though. I was under the impression during this campaign that field marshals would steal the experience from a general under their command. So I'm not putting my volunteers under the command of a field marshal at all, only a general, because I thought a field marshal would steal the XP from the guy I was grinding. This isn't actually true, but I didn't know that at the time, so I was losing out on free stats here. But this begins a series of unlucky events. You might even get a bit frustrated watching how poorly these volunteers end up performing. But a lot of the time it's not even my fault, it's just bad luck. The units do okay, it's just annoying how often things don't work out the way I want them to. I'll point it all out when it happens. I actually just noticed I didn't have 3D models enabled, so I turned them on. The developers of this mod even made 3D models for the units. It's amazing. There's a Changeling light tank right here that I kinda want to destroy, so that's my first goal. There's another Changeling unit here too, the one with the white flag on top there. Looks like a baseball cap. Those are Jaegers, jungle infantry. They are the special forces specific to the Changeling race. Ponies have the Pegasi, Changeling have Jaegers. Here's the first annoyance in this big unlucky streak of mine. You'll find that this is going to happen a lot during these battles with these volunteers as I send them around to various countries. Almost every single time I set them up to start attacking, a railroad gets cut or something and I suddenly lose all supply, and so I have to move them somewhere else only for it to happen again. I try to get to the capital in time, but I'm too slow and Yakistan loses. So kind of a fail there. The Yaki clan might end up becoming an enemy in the war now. There's going to be another civil war in Nova Graphonia though. When it starts, I want to make sure the current Nova Graphonia wins, or else I might end up with yet another enemy in the war. Stalingrad itself might even end up flipping over to the Changelings if it loses, because if Nova Graphonia starts losing, Stalingrad will intervene directly in that war, and that will allow the Changeling volunteers to invade Stalingrad, causing them to lose too. So the results of these civil wars here are really quite important. The Changelings are already going to be extremely powerful. If Equestria has to split its attention in the war and cover multiple fronts like that against multiple enemies, it's going to go really badly, really quickly. Here I'm checking other nations' focus trees to see if they mention Changelings at all. I'm trying to figure out if any of them can join the Changelings as well, so I know which side of the war to intervene on, should I decide to intervene at all. I consider intervening in the war between the polar bears and the penguins here in the north, but end up deciding not to. The weather and the terrain up here will make my tanks lose so much equipment due to attrition, and I just don't want to deal with that. There are better places to send volunteers anyway. The purple country right next to us, Wingbardy is kind of like the Italy of this game. Their leader is even called Biccolini. Anyway, they've just gotten into a war against the Kingdom of Abyssinia down here on the southern continent. Biccolini sometimes declares war on New Mareland. It doesn't happen until after the war with the Changelings starts, but if that war goes poorly for the ponies, if Biccolini thinks he can get away with attacking us as well, since Equestria is too busy getting their butts kicked by the Changelings to help us, they'll take the opportunity and attack. So I'm intervening in this civil war down here because Wingbardy might attack us later and it's an opportunity to destroy some of their divisions early. It also should be a short war, so it'll give us something to do while we wait for the Nova Griffonian civil war to start. That's the one we really want to intervene in. Wingbardy just lost 130,000 men in this war. The civil war in Nova Griffonia has also just started, so I'm redeploying the volunteers over there. That's what I was talking about earlier about Lend-Lease. We could have better optimized our production to account for that. And here's our first encounter with the Changeling medium tank. We might have put up an actual fight if we had more supply, but because we're playing on elite difficulty, we have big supply debuffs, and because of that slider, the Changelings have a ton of extra supply buffs. Here I had to recall the volunteers because Nova Graphonia lost the port, cutting the connection to our capital and preventing our tanks from receiving reinforcements. I'll be sending them back eventually though, once Stalingrad joins the war. I clicked a decision here to get some extra trucks from Equestria, but again I should have just asked for Lend-Lease. There was no reason to burn the political power and lose 3 civs for 90 days. Stalingrad has just joined the war in Nova Graphonia, so I'll be sending volunteers there again. Okay, things are getting a little bit complicated now. The Yaki clan has just declared war on Nova Graphonia as well, so there's 3 sides to the war now. But this does give Stalliongrad the opportunity to take out the Yaks now too, and stop them from joining the Changelings later. There's 3 Changeling tank divisions in this pocket on the left here. 2 light tanks and a medium. We need to destroy them so we don't have to fight them later. They don't have military access with each other, so even though the Yaki clan is also our enemy, the Changeling tanks can't enter their territory and are stuck here. If you take a look at the date though, it's already August 1010. The war against the Changelings starts in May 1011, May 26th to be specific, I believe. That's 8 months. But you also have to take into account that it takes 15 days to recall our volunteers and another 15 or 20 days to move the tanks across the ocean to the Changeling front and get them entrenched. So it's probably closer to 6 months of actual free time left before the big war starts. I need to get this port back so I can reinforce these tanks again. So here I notice that Wingbardy has declared war on the Falkorian Queendom, and this has given me another opportunity to deal some damage to them. I pull out of Nova Graphonia because I couldn't use my volunteers there anyway due to the lack of a port, and I'll be sending them there next. That was the notification. Changeling Equestria Border. That event triggers when the Changelings click their second last focus on the branch of their focus tree that leads to the war with Equestria. Their second last focus takes 70 days, and their final one takes 100 days. So we're now 170 days away from the war starting. Now we're 100 days out. The Changelings are justifying on us right now. Nice. I think Stalingrad should be able to handle the Yaks without us. There's only a month left before the war. We're really cutting it close here. I'm worried about a Wingbardy invasion later on, so I'm going to start building a fort line now. It probably won't do much, but it's better than nothing. We made it with literally just 2 weeks to spare, but this is it. The big war is about to start. We're about to find out if these terrible tanks of mine will be enough or not. Their entire tank army appears to be preparing to attack across this river, which is potentially a good thing. This river is pretty big and it causes massive penalties when attacking across it. If we can tie the tanks down here for a little while, we might be able to buy some time for Equestria to mobilize and get more units out. And it begins. I can now do the focus to unlock my conscription laws and get more horsepower. Since the Changelings are kinda like Germany, they use subs, so I'm gonna be using my tiny little navy to try and destroy them. I don't understand why Equestria would launch a naval invasion like that. They just sacrificed all those units. It was such a terrible idea. Our tanks are doing damage, but they don't have enough org to hold out. They're gonna get across the river. Their tanks are so strong in the open plains like this. I pulled my fighter back because it was just overstacking the airport. Equestria seems to have it handled. There's a Changeling division here that's force attacking, so I'm taking the opportunity to try and destroy it. Force attacking units can't retreat, and it's also taking 100% strength damage as well. And there we go, it's gone. This is not an ideal situation. My tanks are meant to avoid the Changeling medium tanks, but the Changeling medium tanks are battle planning straight into us, so I need to pull back and get out of the way or they'll get destroyed. Have to switch around the trade here. I was importing from Equestria across the ocean and was being convoy raided, so I wasn't actually getting those resources. I need to import from someone else with a land connection. We'll make our stand over here by Mead Lake. The terrain here is just really great for setting up encirclement traps and the like. In my Equestria playthrough, this was where the whole war was decided. Stalingrad finally took down the Yaks. That's good. That means the entire north is secure. When Stalingrad joins later, the Changelings will have to get through all of that, and that'll buy us some time. And here's some more good news. The Changeling tanks have turned north, so my tanks are just facing infantry right now and can actually start doing what they were designed to do. I've sunk one submarine so far. Whenever possible, I'm also just going to click any Changeling unit that's next to me. If you de-org a unit like that, it actually takes a good number of casualties. Do it 2 or 3 times and it does about the same amount of damage as encircling and destroying an entire division. I don't know how they managed it, but the Crystal Empire had their entire army encircled and destroyed. Not a single one of their divisions survived. They literally have 0 units right now. I've never seen that happen before. And the Crystal Empire's down. They do not normally lose that quick. That was about 20,000 kills there. And we're at 5 subs sunk. Wingbardy is starting a big war against this blue faction here. That should keep them busy for a while. Hopefully they lose, that would be convenient. Somehow we just sunk a Changeling destroyer. How did it even get there? And we've officially killed more Changelings than Equestria has. And there, Stalingrad just joined. If we win this war now, that'll be why. I'm debating with myself right now whether I should move these tanks. There are so many opportunities opening up in other sections of the front, but it'll take time to redeploy, and during that time I'll lose out on kills. For now, I decide I'll just wait. Well, we've managed to draw the attention of some medium tanks over here, so we're definitely doing something. I'm trying to break these guys out. Unfortunately, we're just slightly too late. It was close, but I just needed a little more time. They counter-clicked me just perfectly here and saved their tank. Equestria's beating me in kills again. We're going to need to take it up a notch somehow. We just reinforce beamed that tank off that tile and destroyed that division as a result. A perfect example of why reinforced raids is so important. Their medium tanks are definitely bold. They just dive behind our lines without a care in the world. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And got it. They really made me work for that encirclement there, but that's another tank down. And there goes Stalingrad. They just lost. These tanks are doing quite well, but are they doing enough? I think we still have a chance at this point. It'll really depend on what happens once Nova Griffonia falls. I think that's where all the Changeling medium tanks are right now. looks like Wingbardy's going to win that war against blue as well. That's unfortunate. We might really need to make use of that fort line after all.